The Dahab Blue Opening is an exceptionally renowned spot to visit in Sinai, Egypt. It's a profound opening in the ocean, called a sinkhole, and it's situated close to the town of Dahab. It's around 6 miles north of Dahab. Ibn Sinai landmass of Egypt, the Blue Opening is a famous spot for plunging on the shore of the Red Ocean. It resembles a long restricted road of water that is 295 feet in length and 164 feet wide. It's likewise extremely profound at around 393 feet. There's a more modest opening at the top called the Seat, which is around 19 feet wide, and there's one more opening at the base, called the Curve, which resembles a long passage that is around 85 feet in length. Geologists think this opening was shaped millennia prior, when the last ice age was finishing, and the ice was softening. This huge opening is known as a phenomenal spot for scuba plunging and swimming. It's famous on the grounds that there's a lovely coral reef in the shallow tidal pond around its edge. The mass of the opening is likewise shrouded in hard coral developments, and there are a wide range of sorts of marine life living there. Anyway, it's anything but a decent spot for fledglings. You want to have a ton of certainty and great jumping abilities to go there. Individuals frequently call it the jumper burial ground, since it's exceptionally perilous. Over the most recent 15 years, north of 130 individuals have disappeared while investigating this opening, which is the reason it resembles a graveyard for jumpers, despite the fact that there are something else and more plaques holding tight the memorable precipice there. Individuals who never returned. Huge number of individuals actually come here each year without being apprehensive. Stephen Keane, and a 39-year elderly person who grew up close to Dublin, Ireland, found his energy for the game while an extended getaway in Dahab. In 2009, he cherished it such a lot of that he chose to move there and devote his life to it. He took in the Arabic language, turning into a freediving educator, and showed numerous understudies in Egypt, Spain, and the Philippines. In 2015, Stephen, alongside Miguel Lozano from Spain, who was one of the most profound free jumpers on the planet, and Pascal Berger from Switzerland, established Dahab freedivers. During that year, Stephen accomplished his own best plunge of 267 feet utilizing a monophene, which is a lot further than most scuba jumpers can go. Anyway, he turned out to be notable for his job as the well-being jumper, focusing on the security of different jumpers to effectively coordinated freediving rivalries. A serious group of 4 to 5 well-being jumpers is fundamental, while plunging itself is normally not an issue. The most common way of returning up to the surface can be testing contenders who have been submerged for north of 2 minutes face a drop in how much oxygen in their blood, which increments the gamble of encountering a power outage. As a rule, during free jumping contests, the profound security jumper will meet the jumper at a profundity of 100 feet. Another well-being jumper will go along with them at 66 feet, and a third one at 33 feet. Together, the 4 jumpers will swim back up to the surface, all through the rising. The well-being jumpers firmly noticed the jumper for any signs that they might be passing out or going to encounter a power outage, assuming that the jumper passes out. At least 1 well-being jumpers will cover the jumper's nose and mouth top, keep water from entering their lungs. They will then carry the jumper to the surface and resuscitate them. This is normally finished by blowing on their eyelids and calling out to them if vital mouth-to-mouth salvage bosoms might be given. When these crisis methods are applied accurately, the jumper ought to recapture cognizance. In 2017, a 25-year-old Italian named Alessia Zucchini went to Dahab freedivers for preparing. She knew Stephen from a past occasion called Vertical Blue Association. Stephen was her mentor at that point, assisting her with getting ready for the big showdown in Rotan. Alessia had the objective of crossing the curve without utilizing balances. Stephen assumed responsibility for sorting out the whole arrangement, since he had previously coordinated comparable intersections of the curve before and had done it without anyone else's help. To help Alessia during this plunge, Stephen collected a group that included Lily Crespi and different individuals related with the Hob free jumpers. For example, educators and experienced free jumpers. They practiced everything fastidiously, including the timing for sliding and the timing for crossing the distance of the curve. The entire cycle was all around arranged, with each colleague appointed explicit jobs and understanding what their obligations were. On July 22, 2017, Alessia set herself up for the jump and began it. She slid flawlessly, as expected, and the timing was perfect as she started crossing underneath the curve. There were two specialized jumpers present to film her. Stephen had informed Alessia that the tech jumpers would be on her left side, so she was encouraged to swim near them. Reef wall to her right side to stay away from any impact with them. Alessia adhered to the guidelines given to her and remained close to the reef wall as exhorted, since it was her most memorable time crossing the curve. She was curious about the specific area ahead of time. Accordingly, she saw no adjustment of the lighting or any sign that she had left the curve uninformed about this. She kept swimming along the reef wall on her right side. She began going somewhat to the right and away from the rope that was in the center, or somewhat to the left. This was the principal deviation from the arrangement. Furthermore, on the grounds that the curve was situated at a profundity of around 164 to 180 feet, Alessia was adversely light, which implies she was heavier than the water and would in general sink. Thus, she swam undeniably quicker than was at first drilled in the cove, making her leave the curve sooner than anticipated. Stephen played the part of first security jumper during the action to guarantee well-being. They put afloat with a rope at the leave point of the region called the curve. The float and rope was situated in the leave. Stephen's liability was to be available at the float before Alessia left the curve. This was significant in the event that Celestia didn't see the rope or required help viewing it. Stephen had, as there a couple of moments earlier, to a sound to definitely stand out and direct her toward the rope. Once they arrived at the surface, Stephen would pull the rope firmly 2 or multiple times to flag Lily, who might be the second security, at 82 feet underneath. Furthermore, there would be a third well-being individual, situated at around 49 to 66 feet. Lily had the obligation of counting down for Steve's plunge with variable weight, and they had arranged and facilitated everything in like manner. Individuals situated in the blue opening were flagging them from the surface to tell them when Alessia had started her jump. This sign was essential for Lily to begin the commencement brilliantly. For Steve's jump, as Lily started the commencement for Steve, he unexpectedly requested 10 extra seconds. Lily didn't see the reason why, yet she consented to his solicitation. In those minutes, it was hard to pose inquiries in light of the fact that Stephen was preparing for a difficult plunge, and it was significant not to disturb his arrangements or breathing activities. After the commencement, Stephen started his plummet anyway. He was postponed by 10 seconds, making him arrive at the base later than expected. When he showed up, Alessia had moved very distant from the line. Stephen immediately swam to find what is happening. He chose. It did not merit swimming back to the rope. Rather, they began slipping not too far off in the vast water. Alessia didn't have balancers, so she swam without them, while Stephen followed her utilizing his blades. There was a photographic artist situated at a profundity of 131 feet who should catch their rising. Anyway, she saw that something surprising was going on during the underlying piece of the climb. Alessia swam all alone, while Stephen went with and upheld her close to the furthest limit of the climb. Stephen helped her by holding her hips and aiding her swim back to the surface. Alessia was encountering an oxygen hardship anyway. Because of the solid current, they were driven far away during their swim up. They wound up at the seat, which is a bit far off from the leave point of the curve. It required some investment for Alessia To see that Steve was looking lower on a superficial level, not moving or breathing, she responded rapidly, turning him around, and they began looking for help anyway. There was a huge gathering of swimmers in a similar region who were making a great deal of commotion. Also, sprinkling around this made it hard until the end of the group to understand that Alessia and Steve were in a difficult situation. They were confounded about their whereabouts. Lily went down as planned, yet couldn't find anybody. She began to overreact and turned out to be very stressed looking. Through wherever on a superficial level, it required some investment for them to understand that Alessia and Steve were far away from their expected area and had no clue about how they wound up there or what had happened. A group of individuals who were available toward the beginning of the make-a plunge there. Blue opening were quick to show up. They started swimming back to the shore with Steve, who was oblivious. They performed salvage bosoms and did all that they could to assist with aiding him. In the meantime, Lily was swimming, attempting to find them, while conveying an oxygen tank in the long run. She contacted them inside the blue opening. They acquired one of the floats from someone else who was there to help. Steve and Lily began directing salvage breaths with oxygen. A ton of froth was coming out, demonstrating a difficult condition. Understanding that it was not successful to proceed with salvage endeavors in the water, they chose to swim towards the shore, while as yet furnishing Steve with salvage breaths utilizing oxygen. Once they arrived at the shore, they did mouth-to-mouth on him. Tragically, ambulances were not allowed to go the whole way to the blue opening and stand by there. They needed to stop at the taxi stopping region. They set Steve in a taxi and carried the taxi to where the emergency vehicle was situated. From that point, the emergency vehicle moved him to the clinic. Unfortunately, in spite of their endeavors, Stephen didn't recuperate at the emergency clinic. The freediving local area felt the profound bitterness after Stephen's passing, and many individuals communicated their feelings on Facebook. All through the end of the week, competitors, freediving specialists, Stephen understudies, and surprisingly, his neighbors shared individual recollections of Keenan, who was known for his happy grin on plunging. Aficionados need to recall that regardless of how experienced or proficient you might be, everybody is defenseless and mishaps can happen. So, dear jumpers, I earnestly trust that you have no problem at all jumps during your future investigations. We might want to thank you for watching this video. In the event that you delighted in watching, take a jump on the like and buy-in buttons and hit the chime symbol